Hello, everyone, and welcome to Phoenix Gaming. I am your host, Nicholas Henning, and we are doing something extremely different today. I am inviting you to learn about something unique and special that I've been doing. If your name is Harald Henning or Sue Ann Marks, you are not allowed to watch this video until it is the Friday after Thanksgiving. So please kindly turn off your screen now. For the rest of you who are still here and watching with me, I want to share a secret project that I've been working on with all of you, and I have a little ask. So what this video is going to be is me starting off talking about what that secret project is, then going into the ask that I have for you, because I know people will click off of this soon, so I want to ask for your help first. Then I'm going to kind of show you a little bit about it, and I will end by doing sort of like a blog vlog kind of reflection thing about some of the key components of it. So the project that I've been working on is for my dad, and he is this gentleman. Nope, that's not right. He's this gentleman, and that's his wife, Sue Ann. And we are doing Thanksgiving and Christmas together this year. And our format in our family that we've landed on recently is everybody gets one other person. So I pulled my dad this year, and I decided that I was actually going to design a game for him. He is a big gamer. People sometimes ask me, like, how did I get to be so good at games? And a huge part of it is that I started playing games when I was a child, because my dad is a board gamer. He's old school and has been doing this stuff forever. And him and his wife, Sue Ann, they go on cruises. This is a picture of them on their cruise in Egypt. Obviously, they're not on a boat in this moment. It's a river cruise where they kind of visited spots along the way. And they went on another river cruise on the kind of German rivers like the Danube and the Rhine. And next year, they're going on another river cruise at the Mekong. They've really, really liked it. It's been something kind of special and unique for them. And so what I decided I was going to do was design for my dad a board game about river cruises that you could take on a river cruise with you. And so without any further ado, I'll present to you the Ellen River Cruise board game. This is a really hideous box art because what I've done is I've printed this through the Game Crafter, an on-demand print publisher. And all I really have with me right now are the drive-through cards. Drive-through does also like a print demand just for cards, but doesn't have kind of like boxes and components of all the different cards that go into the game, which are all essentially art. The art is entirely photos that they took while they were on their trips together. So here's the ask that I have for you. This game, Ellen River Cruise, ELIN River Cruise, is on Board Game Geek. And I would love for you to go and flood the Board Game Geek page with fake comments, essentially about this game. They can be anything you like. I've already had essentially a handful of people go and rate the game and post comments on it. I know you haven't played it, but whine about the Kickstarter and how it's going, or say that you can't get it, or I can't have access to it in my country, or you've played this game and it's so amazing, or you think this one particular card is completely busted. Any of those kinds of things, right? All the stuff that you see on Board Game Geek, this is kind of supposed to be a little sort of like fun gimmick that I can show my dad, that essentially the worldwide community has engaged with this product that he's in. So that's my ask for you. I'd really appreciate it if you took just a few minutes clicking that link below, or looking up Ellen River Cruise, ELIN River Cruise on Board Game Geek, and dropping a comment there, drop a review, give it a rating, do whatever you like. Like it doesn't have to be nice. It doesn't have to be mean. It just make something fun, respond to people, make it casual, whatever. Like we're just trying to make this look like a very genuine product when in fact is a print-on-demand game that I made pretty quickly, frankly. So here, let me take some time now to show you a little bit more about the product for those of you who are still with me and interested. So we have primarily the game is composed of these river cards that you kind of create like a snaking river, which I'll show you a video of it in a minute. And that snaking river has on the side of it, along the way, different kinds of river cards. And on the river, you can see things like the vistas, the blue vistas, which are like certain things you can see along the river, or you can eat meals, part of going on cruises is that you get to eat kinds of meals. So you might have some of the local vegetables as a kind of centerpiece of your meal here. You're also not just on the river. You start and end in cities along the way. And this game actually has a variant where you go down the river, and that's sort of the base game, but you can also play the advanced version where you go down the river and then back up the river again, starting and ending in different cities. I think it's Cairo and then Thebes was what it would be in real life or something like that. And in the cities, of course, there are things that you can see as well. So here we see not the vista, but the actual site that you might visit for the blue things. Blue things are roughly keyed to like religious type of things, roughly. You also can see some sites along the way. And so you'll see that this is the kind of like yellow site that you could visit, right? As opposed to a blue one. We'll get into that more about why those colors matter. But essentially it's kind of like, it's not set collection, but it's not set collection. And of course you can go shopping. And so there are some wild cards that get paired with the site locations and the city locations along the river that you can look at along the way. So let me actually show you a quick video of like what a setup looks like. And so these are, using the cards that I just showed you. So you have this kind of like snaking river. There's sort of the sites along the side. And essentially what you've done is you've created this, one directional board that you can follow on as you're essentially working your way through the game. So the basic idea of this game is that you are a river cruise captain, and you have several guests on your cruise, and you want those guests to be happy, to give you 5 stars at the end of the day. The scoring system in this game is literally each of them gives you upwards of 5 stars to make your final score. And they give you stars essentially if you meet their various requirements. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what you're doing is, as the riverboat captain, deciding where you're moving along that river. And you have a handful of discs that you can place out there. You have some discs, and they're kind of these like cool see-through discs that I saw on the Game Crafter. And you have sort of you put this disc out to indicate, we're doing this activity at this time, or we're eating this meal at this time. A little bit more on meals versus activities later. And you have to essentially stay where you are or move further down the river, and you can only move a certain distance, up to 3 cards, essentially 3 movements. You kind of count from card to card or from river card to river card along the way to see where it is that you can head. You do, by the way, have some staff that can help you out. So you might have the land docent that lets you turn those, 3 arrow activities, the actual sites, into vistas. Your choice. My favorite staff member is, of course, the ridiculous art of the performer, who just straight up gives you +1 to your final point scoring. So everybody's going to get one staff member that can kind of help them along the way here. But what I really am most proud of in this game is the design around the guest card. So these are the backs of the guest card. They all look the same, except for the fact that their bottom right corner has different pieces of information. And every guest cares about the places that they've gone and the food that they'll eat. And the back of the cards, they've in my kind of headcanon, they've filled out a survey. And the survey says whether they want to eat grapes or not. They want to eat this one particular meal or not. And they'll tell you, I will eat that meal, or I don't want to eat that meal. And they'll also tell you the thing that they are most excited about going to at this location. So let's take a look at the top guest here. So the true tourists, which is the front side of that card, they are not interested in eating that one meal, the grapes. They're interested in eating bread, vegetables, and whatever's in that nice steaming silver platter. They are also interested in seeing one arrow always means wild. So any red location, as well as specifically seeing a red site. They are also interested in seeing any yellow location in addition to seeing a yellow site, specifically a yellow three arrow spot. So those are their desires. They want to visit those 4 places. And in order to make them happy with their meals, everyone's going to eat 3 meals throughout the course of the game. And you want your guests to have eaten 2 of 3 matching meals. So if you eat a 2 and a 4 or a 2 and a 5 or a 4 and a 5 by the end of the round, these guys will give you a star for that. They'll give you a star if you visited a red. They'll give you a star if you, in addition, visited a red 3. They'll give you a star if you visited a yellow. They'll give you a star if you visited a yellow 3. So that's how you get 5 stars, the maximum points, the maximum rating from the true tourists. Very similarly, the other guests on the bottom here, if we look at them, the party animals, so let's move this so we can read them. If we look at the party animals, they're interested in seeing blue things. They also happen to be interested in shopping. It's not always the case that it's 2 and 2. We just happen to have that as the examples here. And that's the kind of activities. These are 2 cards that play very poorly with each other. They have completely opposite goals. And hey, this game isn't always fair. Sometimes you draw some cards that are not so great with one another. These 2 cards are kind of on the actual opposite ends of the spectrum. You usually see things that cooperate with each other a little bit more. Now, the other kind of mechanic in this game is sort of this like, do I know the information or not? And so at the beginning of the game, you get 5 guests. 4 of them will be face down. Basically, in setup, you flip one of them face up. And then every time you eat a meal, you'll flip another card face up. So throughout the course of the game, every time you eat meals, you will have additional information about your guests that you can use to kind of manipulate what your river ride is going to be. You also are not allowed to eat meals twice in a row. People get too full if they do that. So you're incentivized in this game to try to do your meals as early as possible so you can make sure that you're making your guests happy. But like I said, you kind of have to match the locations on the river. So let me show you just a kind of brief example of like how you might go through this process. So you know here that we've got the party animals and they want to do some shopping. So maybe we'll start off doing some shopping because we also know that that other bottom guest there wants to shop. And then we've seen a lot of people that want to eat food. And at first we think maybe the 5 food, but nope, we're going to think the 1 food. We're going to continue fleeing from the cat before us and drop here at the yellow site, which is actually probably a mistake because we don't have a lot of indication that we'd go to the yellow site. And along the way here, we'd be kind of dropping discs. And if you're playing with another player while you're doing this along the way, the idea is that you would essentially go back and forth, dropping discs like, I go to this location, I go to this location, I go to this location. For a little bit, I had considered kind of making it competitive, like you couldn't go here if someone was there in that exact moment or something like that, but it ended up not really working. The game is designed to essentially be a solo or 2-player game. It's just a kind of quick little breezy, drop your discs along the river, play this game of like trying to suss out what your guests want. And at the end of the day, that kind of functions like a random mechanism. Like you have some information about it, but not enough. And then there's going to be some of those guests that you'll flip over at the end. You're like, well, I didn't prepare for that. And you will score points kind of as I said before. That's functionally the whole game that I've described to you. There's a couple kind of like variants in there that I mentioned. You can make the river fully face up at the beginning of the game, or you can make it like kind of half face down and it'll like flip up as you're moving down the river. It's like the Foggy River expansion or whatever. So some cute little things like that. And there's a game box and a rule book and everything that gets all printed on a pamphlet when the game crafter shows up. But I'm pretty excited for it. I think it's a neat little thing, and I hope it lands well. But if you've watched this far, thanks for engaging and hopefully clicking on that link and going to BGG and dropping a comment or a review of this fake game. I'm going to just wrap up by talking a little bit about sort of my design goals of this game. So like I said, I wanted to make a game about a river cruise because it's been a thing that they've really been into, that you could take on a river cruise with you. This whole game is these cards. If you wanted to just play with like bottle caps or something like that, you could play the game with a stack of cards. It is 54 cards. And that was a goal, is that you could basically take the game in the deck box and leave. The nicer version of the game is going to come in a box that's like this big. It needs to be mobile because I'm hoping that they will take it with them and show it to their other old couple friends who can gawk at their very cool son who made a personalized game for them. The main gimmick, of course, art-wise, is that I wanted to use all the pictures that they took themselves. So every single card in this game is a picture from their photo album that I had Sue-Ann share with me. So she knows something suspicious is up because I asked her a couple questions, and I asked her about like what about cruises did they like, and that gave me kind of the information that I needed to to sort of design it and pull the game together. So it being in a small, compact thing was important. The other thing is that my dad, like I said, is a gamer. He is one of the best gamers that I know. He's not as good as me these days because he doesn't play quite as obsessively as I do, but he's still going to be a very threatening presence in any board game table that you play at him. Sue-Ann, on the other hand, is not a board gamer. She is new to our family, and she has taken on board gaming and started kind of getting invested. And, we played a game of Ark Nova. She's a smart lady. Like, she picks up things, particularly games with thematic components, quite well, but doesn't have 50 years of gaming underneath her belt or anything. And so I wanted to make a game with that random element that made it so that anybody who was playing had a good chance. So it needed to be like a lighter game they were going to play together, and one that felt like it had a little bit more chaos in it, that sort of allowed for you to make some wise decisions. And if you study the cards in this game, you'll learn a little bit about the guests. So I'll just give you the hint, the pro tips. These cards, they always have, like, every red card has 2 red desires on the back, and it's always 1 wild and 1 of the other thing. And then they also have an ordering preference. So if there's a pair of reds on a card, that's the information you'll see on the back. If there's a pair of blues on a card, it goes reds, yellows, blues, purples. That's the ordering. So if I see a pair of blues on the back of this, that means that by definition, it cannot also have a pair of reds on it. So red on the front actually or on the back of the card, is the least information you can get. Blue gives you that kind of extra information of they won't want to see 2 red sites. So if you study them, you can get a little bit in, like, there's sort of a logic into how things are put together, and you can use that to give yourself a little bit of an edge, which I've learned in the play testing that I've done of this game. And those were the primary goals. This was a pretty fun project to do. I mean, frankly, I spent a lot more time. I think I came up with the idea pretty quickly and ran through a few tests, things that like didn't work, didn't break. Like, at first I did not have meals and like visiting sites scored separately, but I had them both in the game. And it turned out that the strategy was to just draw guests that wanted meals because you were already eating meals, because I had that mechanism of, like, meals would flip cards from the beginning of the game, and that obviously was really bad and unbalanced. So I fixed that by kind of adding in the meal thing as its own separate mechanism, and that's got its own. The staff cards are almost certainly not balanced. I tried to make it so that all the staff cards essentially gave you the ability to do, like, one thing. And I was also deciding how I wanted scores in this game to be pretty high. Like, if you had a bad game, you'd still score 20 and the person would win with 25 and they had the perfect game. Generally, what you're going to score in this game is 23. Usually what happens is you have, like, a fair amount of overlap from your actions, but not quite enough. So 22 or 23 is pretty common. And I was trying to decide how many actions I wanted in the game, to essentially make points of contact. And to not go too much into the math and be too boring about it, I kind of landed somewhere between 6 and 7, maybe even 8 actions plus the 3 meals, gave sort of the like correct amount of things. And so what I landed on was actually everybody takes 6 actions. Then if you want to, you can go into the nighttime. You can kind of push it and do a 7th action, but that's worth -1 point because people are tired, so a little bit grumpy. And you could do 8 actions, but that's worth then -2 points, I think, because they're even grumpier still. And one of the staff cards actually says, the 3rd action after 6 that you take is a freebie because there's a night watchman who makes everybody happy or whatever. And the idea was that each of those actions was meant to represent an hour, right? Like, I originally wanted it to be that, you have a day of vacation, so it's an hour per meal, it's an hour for each of these activities, and that was kind of how originally I'd broken it out in my mind. So I was trying to keep it to less than 12, like between 8 and 12 was the goal of, like, how many actions I wanted it to be, to kind of hit that thematic beat for myself. And it ended up working out pretty well. And then I landed on that sort of like, you can take more action. So if your goal in this game is to make everybody happy, you can do that. You just get penalized at the end off your final score for essentially having arrived in the final city a little bit late. The game's also going to, reward you for paying attention to what it looks like down the river. Like you, in certain setups, are going to see like a certain activity only show up one time. And in certain setups also, there's a card on the river that specifically says you must stop on this card. And it's a card that has meals, a 1 and a 5 meal. And that's why I landed on the 1 meal, the grapes meal being the one that tells you. So it's kind of on that forced stop location, you can decide like, do I want to eat grapes or do I not want to eat grapes? And that can help kind of decide what you're doing along the way. So that's enough kind of rambling about the little pieces there, but let me actually just also briefly kind of chat up Nand Deck, which is what I use to construct all these cards. So Nand Deck is a pretty cool little program. It does require you to like learn a little bit of programming, but frankly, there's also just like a visual editor that sort of like pre-programs stuff for you, which is really kind of a sweet upgrade from what they've had in the past. And so it looks clunky, but it's quite amazing how user-friendly it really is. I watched basically like 1.5 videos. I've used Nand Deck in the past, but it's been like 8 years, and I watched like 1.5 videos, and then I was like, oh, right, okay. And they like upgraded it to this visual editor thing, and I made all of these cards, which like look completely decent, I would argue. Like, check this. This looks like it could be a real, this looks like it could be a real card made by a real person, like little icons and everything, which by the way came from gameicons.net. Great website if you're designing stuff. Yeah, that's about it, everybody. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And if you already posted on Board Game Geek, I appreciate you even more. Thanks. Have a great day.